What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's team selection for Game Week 18. We only have one match left for Game Week 17, so if anything major happens in the Man City Leeds game, I'll talk about that in future videos. So I'm going to run through what the team is looking like for Game Week 18, any transfers that I might need to make, and I've already got two players that are flagged straight away from what's happened so far, so I'll talk about that as well, and I'll quickly run through how I'm doing in Game Week 17. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and let's jump into it. So Game Week 17 has gone really well so far. I'm currently on 77 points. I think before this game week I was just outside the top 700k. Now I'm just inside the top 400k. So it's a nice big green arrow. Just how big that green arrow is will depend on the likes of Foden, who are playing tonight, that I don't own, and especially De Bruyne as well, because I think his ownership is higher than Mo Salah. So if he does well, that green arrow won't be quite as good, but either way, we take a green arrow after the World Cup break, especially on unlimited transfers when there's been so much talk about template and stuff like that. So I've still got Haaland captain to go, and I've got Cancelo in my defence. I'll come on to the issues in Reece James and Callum Wilson in a second. The reason that I ended up on a 3-5-2 was because I really wanted to take that punt on Mason Mount because of the fixtures, Bournemouth, then Nottingham Forest, then a double game week, then Crystal Palace at home. But I didn't want to give up Salah, Rashford, Martinelli and Saka. And given that I thought Martial, I didn't know quite what his minutes would be like and what his fitness would be like, and obviously he came off after 65 last night. Mitrovic was a doubt as well. I couldn't really afford Darwin Nunez. So ultimately it didn't feel like there was three forwards that I necessarily wanted. So I ended up on the 3-5-2. Now already, because of the injuries to Reece James and Wilson possibly missing in Game Week 18 as well, I'm already thinking, wouldn't it be good to have Andreas Pereira on the bench? And obviously he's got a double game week in Game Week 19 too. So although the 3-5-2s worked really nicely this week because every single midfielder I own has returned, that's not necessarily going to happen in future weeks. So as much as I'm enjoying Game Week 17, I know what FPL is like, and that could quickly turn in 18 or 19. So we'll see how things go. I didn't pick Almiron in the end because, like I said, there was a lot of midfielders that I preferred instead, and he did what he's been doing for ages. He continued scoring. Luckily, every single midfielder apart from Martinelli outscored him, and Martinelli matched him anyway. So I'm still glad I didn't go with him, but he looks like such a good value pick. I can see myself. The thing is, because he's, I think, 5.8 or 5.9 million, even if he goes up like another 0.4, he's still going to be really good value. So if I need to drop one of these players soon, like Rashford maybe when the fixtures get tougher, Mason Mount once the double game week is over, and I need someone cheaper, I'm still going to be comfortable picking him up. So I haven't written him off or anything like that. I just preferred these five midfielders, and so far it's gone okay. Reece James, extremely frustrating, but I guess that is the risk you take when a player's been out injured for a while, hasn't played competitive football. Obviously Chelsea were happy enough to throw him straight in. He was about 9 minutes away from a clean sheet, and to be honest, he looked good. He looked attacking even in that back four. I thought Chelsea looked better, especially when he was on the pitch. The problem is now I've got him to deal with and two other Chelsea players, and I'm not sure if they'll be as good going forward. I just don't think he's going to make Game Week 18. I think Graham Potter said it's possibly a reoccurrence of the injury he had before. So even like Game Week 19 is not looking good. So I'll talk about replacements in a minute. Callum Wilson, extremely frustrating because I was looking between him, Mitrovic and Martial as well. And obviously the other two scored points. Mitrovic got a massive haul. If I'd gone for Mitrovic, I may have benched him. I don't know if I would have definitely played him. So I don't want to pretend I could have had even more points. But Wilson wasn't even injured. He was ill and we didn't hear about that. So there's not much you can do about picks like that. It's frustrating. But given that the rest of the week went okay, I'm not too concerned about that. And just lastly, I'm really glad that I didn't drop Trippier. I wouldn't say I ever like seriously considered it, but I did consider it, right? And in the end, I talked myself into the fact that he's just a play every week kind of player. I don't necessarily ever want to bench him, and I'm glad I did that. And everyone else owns him anyway. I'm not trying to say that I've got this pick that nobody else is on, but I'm just really glad I did that. So a pretty good week. I'm a little bit worried about the bench because Patterson is basically rubbish. Greenwood's not going to get many minutes, and then it's only really Ben White left. But it's gone okay in 17. We just hope that continues going forward. So let's take a look at Game Week 18. So as you can imagine, after his 9-pointer, I'm pretty happy with Kepa. It looks like his first choice, and 4.5 million just feels like an absolute bargain. So unless Mendy starts getting some minutes in the league, and I'm not sure why Graham Potter would start messing around with his goalkeepers, he's probably in there for the long haul. I think when I picked him, I knew that Chelsea had some pretty good fixtures, but I'm not quite sure I realised just how good they were, because you've got Man City at home in 19, but that's part of a double game week, so I don't mind that whatsoever. Liverpool away in 21... is not great, but I think that week Danny Ward has got Brighton at home, so if I wanted to play someone else or a different goalkeeper, I could. Then you've got Fulham, West Ham, Southampton. Okay, Spurs away, not ideal, but then it's Leeds, Leicester, Everton, Villa, Wolves, Brighton. You're going to be perfectly happy playing a Chelsea goalkeeper that's only costing you 4.5 million in any of those fixtures. And I'm not completely ruling out bringing in another goalkeeper. Like if Brighton were to get a double, maybe I would go for Sanchez, but I would probably take Ward out if I had the money to do that instead of Kepa. So he's in there for the long haul. Trippier is someone I'm probably going to play most weeks. In game week 19, it'll be interesting because Ben White has got Newcastle at home and Trippier has Arsenal away. So you could definitely argue that Arsenal got the better shot at a clean sheet. But obviously Trippier's got the massive ownership and the attacking threat. So I probably don't want to overthink that and just want to play him most weeks. With Cancelo, I've not seen the Man City versus Leeds game yet, so I don't know if he starts that game. Even if he doesn't, as long as he gets some minutes at some point, I'm pretty confident of playing him for Everton at home, and hopefully he'll just play the Leeds game anyway. And then it's kind of Reece James. Now, my initial instinct is just to bench him and play Ben White instead. Obviously, Arsenal, good defence. I don't necessarily expect a clean sheet this week because Brighton away is not an easy fixture. The big thing for me is, one, I've got Callum Wilson to deal with, so my team's maybe a little bit different to those of you that have got no issues apart from Reece James. But also, there's no defenders that stand out that I feel like I absolutely need this week. I don't have room for another Arsenal defender because I'm already tripled up. And obviously, Brighton away, like I've just said, not a great fixture. I don't think that a Trippier and Botman double up is necessarily that bad, but it doesn't feel that exciting, especially when they haven't got a double game week. So I'm perfectly happy with Trippier. I just don't know if I want Botman as well. I could just switch to a different Chelsea defender. So you'd imagine if they keep the back four that they played yesterday, that Azpilicueta will get some good minutes now, because who else can play in that right back spot? I know when they've played a back five with wing backs, Loftus-Cheek has played right wing back. I guess they could play anyone there, Sterling, Pulisic, etc. But I think there's a chance they just stick with the back four, because it did work quite well. Obviously, part of that was because of Reece James playing really well. But Azpilicueta is only 4.8 million. So for Nottingham Forest away, then a double game week, it doesn't feel like a huge risk, especially if you can bench him a good few times after that. Until Reece James is back, maybe his minutes will be good. Cucurella on the left is obviously an option as well. A lot of that will depend on when Chilwell is back. Hopefully Graham Potter gives us a timeline, but I just don't think I need to make that decision this week. So that's probably why I'm going to put it off. And if I get to next week and I just still don't fancy either of those Chelsea defenders, or Thiago Silva or Koulibaly, whoever it might be, I could just wait till game week 20 and possibly get a second Man City defender instead, because I only have Cancelo and Haaland right now. So that will give me the opportunity to get the triple up without getting De Bruyne or Foden. Now, I don't know who's completely nailed on there. None of them probably, but Stones or Laporte could be options. And maybe that's what I do with Reece James. So right now, I think I'm just going to bench him this week. I know he might drop in price, which is not ideal, but I want to give myself another game week to think about it. I'm not completely ruling out doing it this week, but right now the plan is to bench him and play Ben White instead. There's not really a whole lot that I need to say about the midfield. Unless there's injury news in the press conferences, I'm just going to keep all five. So let's just quickly run through them. With Salah, obviously I don't know what Kevin De Bruyne has done yet in game week 17. He may well smash the 12 points that Salah got. But going forward, I think Salah's fixtures are perfectly good. I think his minutes are probably better than De Bruyne as well. And that's not to say that I think De Bruyne is going to start getting benched every other week, because he'll almost certainly just play every single game. But if I had to bet money on one of these two players getting benched, it would probably be De Bruyne over Salah. His goal threat is better, so his underlying stats in terms of expected goals, expected assists are very similar to De Bruyne, but they're more geared towards goals. And obviously he's got penalties as well. And I still have the option, because I've only got two Man City players currently, to do Salah to De Bruyne in game week 20 if I want to. Rashford's not really a worry. He's so cheap. Yes, Wolves away is not necessarily as good as Nottingham Forest at home, where he did really well. There's nothing to say that he can't get a return in that game. And then it's Bournemouth at home. So So I'll worry about him after that. Then you've got the Arsenal players, Saka and Martinelli. Yes, Odegaard looks really good right now, but ultimately I've got Martinelli at 6 million. Saka's on penalties. I don't really need the cash by downgrading Saka to Odegaard anyway. And Arsenal, like I said yesterday on the kind of transfer tips video, they're just so good. They're nailed on. There's no reason to offload them. And obviously Mason Mount was kind of the punt in my team. He's already got me 10 points. I don't know if that will continue. That was a shot outside the box, of course. I'd like to have seen him in the box taking more shots, but ultimately he's got Nottingham Forest away, who are not great, right, from a defensive point of view. Then he's got a double game week, so he's not really a worry to me whatsoever. It was interesting how Chelsea played yesterday with that back four. I thought Zakaria played really well and gave them kind of a bit more stability, but it let kind of Mason Mount, I wouldn't say play a free role, but he was able to, you know, kind of help that front three as well. So he was playing like a number 8. So he had Zakaria and Jorginho kind of anchoring a little bit, and then Mason Mount was able to get forward. It did mean the likes of Sterling, Havertz and kind of Pulisic were more likely to be in the box and taking those shots. But he did get into that final third quite a lot. He took some set pieces as well. So as a short-term punt against essentially a third forward, because obviously I could have Tony or Mitrovic or Martial instead, I think he's perfectly fine. So he's going to stay. And by the way, 3-5-2 on paper just looks the best formation. I love it. And then with the forwards, unless something major happens in the Leeds game, I can't see any reason why I won't have Haaland again for game week 18, and he'll almost certainly be my captain against Everton at home. I will give a tiny amount of thought about captaining Salah against Leicester, given how well Newcastle did against them, and the fact that obviously, you know, Liverpool are at home. I can't see any reason they won't score a few goals, but I think ultimately I probably just won't fight against the kind of ownership that Haaland has. And then we come on to Callum Wilson. Now, I can't see much of a reason not to transfer him to kind of Mitrovic, which we'll come on to in a second. This was a quote that Fantasy Football Scout tweeted, where Eddie Howe was talking about Callum Wilson on the BBC Football Daily podcast. So he said, "We hope that Callum Wilson is available for game week 18, but the fact the illness was enough to keep him out today," that's obviously the Leicester game, "means he probably needs a period where he builds his immune system and strength back." And by the way, it was super frustrating that he missed out, but also that Newcastle got a penalty that he would have taken within like the first minute or something like that, which Chris Wood took. So that was frustrating, but again, it is what it is. So this kind of makes it sound like even if he's available, they may just bench him, especially given how well they did against Leicester. They can win that game against Leeds with Chris Wood on the pitch and maybe bring Callum Wilson on for 20 to 30 minutes. So I'm not sure what Eddie Howe would have to say in his press conference, as long as we get one before the deadline, to make me think that Wilson is going to start. So that worries me. And by the way, Wilson to Mitrovic was already a plan that I had for game week 19. So I just don't know why I wouldn't bring this move forward to game week 18 instead. And like I said, just bench Reece James for another week and see how I feel in game week 19. The only other options to consider are Ivan Toney, but Mitrovic has got a double coming up, Nketiah, but I've already got triple Arsenal, Martial, who I don't mind at all, but I do think the fact we saw him come off last night in the 65th, I think it was about the 65th minute, because there's another game soon, means that could happen in game week 18 as well. And obviously Wolves away is not a good as fixture as Forest at home. And yes, Man United have got Bournemouth at home in game week 19, but then it's Man City and Arsenal. So when you look at the fixture list for United, it's Wolves away, Bournemouth at home, Man City at home, then Arsenal away, I think it is. So 3 of the next 4 fixtures are not necessarily great, and I just don't want to rely on him. So I probably won't go for Martial. So he just kind of defaults to Mitrovic. And I know people are worried about the yellow card situation, but even if he gets the yellow card against Southampton at home, which is a really good fixture for him anyway in game week 18, he'll still play one fixture in game week 19. I just then won't captain him, and I might not captain him anyway. I may end up going for Mason Mount or even Kepa, who knows. But I think because he definitely gets a fixture in game week 19 no matter what, I feel okay bringing him in because I don't see a better option. I don't particularly like Mitrovic's fixtures after that, and I would prefer to have Callum Wilson given how good their fixtures are, but I don't think there's a lot I can do about it if he's going to be a doubt for game week 18. So after the double, it's Newcastle away, Spurs at home, Chelsea away. That's a pretty tough fixture run, but at least you know he's going to play all the games, you know he's on penalties, and as long as he's fit, he will play kind of 80 to 90 minutes most games as well. Whether or not he is completely fit, we'll have to wait and see what Marco Silva says. But given that he played the game in 17 and the next game's not till Saturday, I feel like he will play that Southampton at home game. He might not make it to 90 minutes, but it's a good enough fixture that I'm willing to risk the yellow card. And if he doesn't get it in the Southampton game, bearing in mind he will be aware that I'm sure that he's one yellow card away, then at least he gets for sure the Leicester game, which is the easier fixture anyway. So I just feel like there's enough upside to make this transfer. I can't see any reason not to do it, especially when I've got Reece James flagged as well. So even if I was to transfer out Reece James and Wilson didn't play, I would still have Ben White on anyway. So I just feel like Mitrovic as a replacement for Wilson is better than any of the replacements that I can get for Reece James instead. And by the way, one thing I didn't mention, which I'll just quickly run through now, if I do that move of Wilson to Mitrovic, it does give me 1.2 million to spend because Mitrovic has gone up in price. So if I took Reece James out, I would have 7 million to spend. So if I wanted to, or if they got a confirmed double game week by any chance, I could potentially go for a Liverpool defender like Robertson or Van Dijk. The fixtures are not amazing. I do think they look shaky against Villa, but if they got a double game week, I might be tempted to go there. So I just feel like the right move for my team is to do this move first before I get rid of Reece James. Who knows? I might end up taking both out for a hit, but I just don't think I need the hit this week. And basically, the team would end up looking like this. So I'd have Mitrovic against Southampton, I'd play Ben White, and I would just bench Reece James instead. Let me know what you think about that plan. Like I said, I can't get Nketiah even if I wanted to. Right now, if you gave me the option of 4 players from one team, I would definitely take Arsenal over Man City because of the minutes and because of the value as well. But I can't do that. So Mitrovic in, I bench James, and I play Ben White, and I think that team looks pretty good for this week. Let me know in the comments below if you think there's a different route that I should take. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and I'll catch you again tomorrow.